Hello, and welcome to day 2 of Unite on Purpose, LB Presents. And today I have my second interview that I'm going to be interviewing the wonderful Charles Banks from the Food People. And Unite on Purpose has been set up because we're all about creating a purpose-driven movement towards global unity. And our purpose at BoB is to unite people around the world so everybody has the right to be seen and heard. And as you see on my wall, create the face of modern business. What if we could shift education, health, manufacturing, retail to be able to make a positive change in the world? So I invited Charles Banks on because he is doing exactly that. And he has been through our BoB Business School, and him and his business partner, Wayne, are absolutely renowned in the food industry for being the innovators and drivers of trend. So let me introduce my wonderful guest, Charles Banks from the Food People.
Hi, Charles. Everyone. Hi, Lindsay. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on to the show. You are day 2 in the hot seat. We had Andrew from Aaron of Scotland yesterday, and he came on to talk about his purpose of being the voice of Aaron and shifting Scotland. So today it's going to be very interesting to understand all about the food industry and what's been going on in your world. So, Charles, let me kick off, because obviously you've been in the BoB Business School with us, and I've spent quite a long time with you and your business partner, Wayne, and you are absolute innovators of change. You sit at the forefront of the trends in the food industry. You work with some really top brands, don't you? Like very, very big supermarkets. And you are the one that share where the trends are going. So would you tell us a bit about your business and tell me about the Food People and what you're about?
Yeah, definitely. Well, as you know from some of our conversations, working in the food and drink industry is an incredible place to be. It's so diverse, it's changing so very, very quickly. And over the 16 years that we've been doing what we do, we've seen it change faster and faster. And there's always something new to talk about within food and drink. It's whether it be new products, new ways of servicing our basic needs for food and drink. It's so diverse. It covers cultures and different environments, but it's just so much bigger than that. And I think that's one of the things that we've learned. Almost learnt the obvious as part of going through the process that we've been through with you, and learnt to be able to talk about it. And I suppose our inspiration goes back, right to our first interaction as humans with food and drink, cooking over fire, to today where we're changing the world of food and drink on a daily basis. But it's the fact that for us, and I love the word unity, and it was great that we were talking about that. It was fortuitous that you built this whole campaign around that, but unity really sits at the heart of what we do as well, because the need for it unites us all every single day. We all need to eat and drink, and many of us, that's just part of our daily lives. For other people, that's a struggle, but we all have a need for it, and therefore it brings us all together, that need, every single day. So yeah, it's just the best place to be.
So for people that don't know, Charles and Wayne really are at the cutting edge of trends. And I would love to know, we have been in, one of the biggest pandemics in history. And, at the same time, as my business partner would say, Darren Sherlaw, we're in an L-shaped recession. And I'd be really interested to know from you, from a trends perspective and from the food industry, what have been the changes that have taken place through the pandemic, and what have you seen, and how have the businesses reacted to this?
Well, one of the things that we've seen, and the change that we've seen, is perhaps not so much of the brand new, but a reordering of the landscape that was already actually in play. And it's been an acceleration of shifts and changes that would have perhaps taken years to take place, such as the shift into the online space. Was 7% of the UK grocery market, it's now 15%. So those are some of the shifts that would have taken years to happen, but have accelerated at pace just because of ease and convenience, and also reducing the risk of infection from going out. But that was already happening, and what we've seen is the acceleration of that. Home skills of home cooks, whatever your base skill level or knowledge level, whether you're a highly proficient semi-professional cook, or whether your idea of scratch cooking is, boiling an egg, your skill level is likely to have moved up a notch over the last sort of 3 months or so. I think that's a really important consideration for anybody in the world of food and drink. And I think many people have reconnected with the role that food and drink plays in our everyday lives, because it's not only is it about sustenance, but it's also provided structure and routine. And when we start thinking about some of the wider issues in society around mental wellness and things like that, structure is so critically important. So I think for many people it's gone beyond just sustenance, but to a whole new level, and that would include things like sort of a deeper emotional connection with our food supply chains, our farmers, our fishermen, that type of thing. So those are just a few of the things that we've seen over the last sort of few months.
So I'm going to put you on the spot a bit now, because there's a couple of trends that that I come from a consumer trends background, and I've worked with many brands spotting gaps over my 19 years of being in that world. And there's two trends that I've been talking about. One is conscious consumption, and the fact that people are now consuming in a more conscious way, and waste is a big trend that people are now looking at. I'd really love to get your take on that one. And the second trend is around local. And what I've been saying to people is going back to local, people either growing their own foods or trading with local. And so I'd like to get your take on that one as well, from the trend expert.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I mean, conscious consumption is so important. I think there are certain elements with conscious consumption that have probably been challenged in the recent past around, the whole move was towards zero packaging and reducing packaging. I think in some spheres of our daily lives, we're probably starting to see a little bit of unwind of that, just because of the protective barrier that it naturally provides. But certainly over the medium term, we would expect the force of pandemic to actually accelerate that, and that connection with actually the unthinkable has just happened from a pandemic perspective, and the next unthinkable that is going to happen is around climate shift, climate change, and that isn't something that's going to be that you're going to be able to kind of pop a pill, if you like, and have immunity from. That's not something that's going to happen. So and it really ties in with your second question, actually, because some of the things that we expect to see accelerate off the back of that is it a greater connection with our local food systems, because supporting local and understanding how that local food ecosystem works is increasingly important, and the dopamine hit, the feel good that comes from making that positive choice to a business or a brand or an individual within your local community. I think that's a really important thing to consider. But also championing things like heirloom and heritage products and varieties to preserve those varieties into the future. I'd expect greater levels of badging and signposting for consumers when they're making a positive choice around the environment or biodiversity. I mean, we've had the traffic light system in health for quite a few years now. What about the same from an ecological and environmental perspective? So we know when we're making that positive choice. I think generally sort of building greater levels of resilience within our supply chains, just because the unthinkable has happened. And waste, as you talk about, is absolutely key. And I mean, a lot of the waste actually happens in home, which is an opportunity in itself. And then as we move back up through the supply chain, you've got different elements of waste. But a big part of waste is about distribution. So we've got enough food. It's about getting it to the right people, and how we do that. And that is something that needs to be decoded at a regional, national, and global level, and requires business and government and wider organisations to come together to help tackle that. So yeah, those together with health in food and drink and challenging supply chains and the role that communities play, that together with the two topics that you've just talked about are the things that we're incredibly, I was going to say passionate, we're obsessive about them, to be honest.
So interestingly, you work with some of the biggest retailers in food, and I'd be interested to hear, obviously, when the pandemic hit, but before that even, how are they moving into new spaces? Because we do talk about local, but we also talk about community. Are they still just charging ahead in the same way that they were before? Or are they now looking to smaller retail outlets? I spoke with a lady from a clothing brand on a panel the other day called Scamp and Dude, and her brand was very conscious around foundation, give back. She's supporting a lot of charitable organizations with her clothing range, set up a foundation. And I wondered if that's translated into the bigger businesses yet, into the bigger retail stores, or are they looking to the smaller businesses to look at trends?
Yeah, I mean, we spend our whole working lives looking at what is emerging and gaining momentum. And very often that starts with the smaller players because they're more agile, they can move faster and be very resolute on meeting one very specific need. But the bigger brands and businesses have very much got this on their agenda to, greater or lesser degrees. And we're starting to see this pre-pandemic. And there are a couple of projects that Wayne and I worked on as a business, one with a UK retailer and the other with a processed food manufacturer producing ready meals and so on. And the conversations that we were having with them, they were really starting to take community, health, and their responsibility as businesses that feed the nation, that are responsible for putting food propositions in front of the public at large, and really starting to think about their responsibility at a completely different level. And I remember a conversation that Wayne and I had where we were saying, do you know what, this is the first time that we're starting to see these conversations happen, in some cases above profit. So that was quite a milestone. I'm not going to say it's widespread, but for us, working with those businesses means that we're in a position to be able to influence the change, which is where absolutely we want to be. And of course, that ties in perfectly with our purpose, which obviously we'll talk about later. But that's why for us, we do work with those mega brands and mega retailers, because we get them to make an incremental shift. That makes a massive difference in the broader food experience that we all have as a whole.
So Charles, I often talk about, coming from a trends background, I talk about when I used to break trends in the market, we always used to look for the 3% leaders and the 15% influencers to go and break the trend, because we always recognize that institutions, the bigger, very bigger brands, were never necessarily going to make the change. It was always going to come from the minority, the 3% leaders or the 15% influencers. And I remember sitting in my kitchen in my house, and yourself and Wayne were around my kitchen table, and we were building out your business. And you told me an amazing story of a waste guy, a waste company. I think he was in Brighton, and he was quite small, but he was able to redistribute waste from the kitchen and the restaurant. Could you tell a little bit about that company?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we're talking about a chef who's since moved his operation to London. His name's Doug McMaster, and his concept was silo, and it was all about it's all about zero waste. If you think, and you can make the same analogy with cooking at home, you buy things in, you consume them, and you produce an element of waste, whether that be food waste, packaging waste. And it's exactly the same in a commercial kitchen, but on a massive scale. And what he set out to do was to make a zero waste restaurant concept. And his challenge, and he's spoken at a number of our events before, is try going a week without a bin, and that will help you to understand the sort of challenge that you would face. And very quickly, you'd be, yeah,
going a week without a bin, Charles. I'm sorry.
Exactly. You'd very quickly be surrounded by your own detritus. So that would be on a huge scale if you're in a restaurant. But he really did challenge the norms about his supply chains, where he purchased his products for, the level of seasonality. He would go into the fields and see potatoes being harvested and say, well, these little tiny ones here, why are they dropping out? Or they don't meet the grade, or they're not big enough. Well, if you cook those up, they're incredibly flavorful, concentration of taste and flavor, incredibly sweet. So he would take those and incorporate those into dishes. He would make sure the roots and the stems and everything were incorporated. And it ties in with the root to stem and fin to gill movement and nose to tail in meat, which has been around for some time. But the principle of that is every part of the food has an equal value. And how do we get the most out of that, turning things into sauces and pestos and all that kind of thing. But he even took it as far as the staff uniforms. If a glass was broken on the floor, it would be swept up and turned into tiles that they would put on the wall in the kitchen. And they had a biodigester, so any food that was surplus to requirements or wasn't fit for consumption, because perhaps it had been on somebody's plate, went into the biodigester. They made compost, and that then went back into the circular food system. So went back to the farm to fertilize the ground, to improve soil quality, and so the virtual circle goes round.
So for somebody so innovative, I mean, in my world, he would have been the 3% leader. He would have been somebody that was breaking a trend. Waste is a big trend. I spoke to, and actually the Scottish Chamber of Commerce, who are running a huge event in Scotland next year with the United Nations all about waste. And for somebody that is so innovative, and when he spoke at the big events that you ran with the big supermarkets and so forth, what was the pickup? I mean, I would have asked, do you actually scrape the food off people's plates and re-deliver them to the person on the next table? But, no, not funny.
Yeah, I
mean,
he didn't do that, just to reassure everyone that is watching. If you go to Silo, that is not what happens. I think everybody was incredibly inspired by what Doug had to say, but it's not a very palatable message. It will take a real change maker or an innovator to go, do you know what, there's opportunity here. It's our responsibility to do to influence the waste agenda, and we're starting to see that come through. But it's quite an uncomfortable truth. And yeah, it's but there's opportunity in there for sure.
Well, watch this space, because I believe the waste agenda in 3 years from now will be an agenda on everybody's plates.
Yeah, indeed. Absolutely.
So, Charles, you came into BoB's business school and you've been at my kitchen table working with Wayne. And when you sat at my table, you said, we're the food people and this is what we do. And we pushed and prodded you, as we normally do with our clients. And we prodded a bit more.
Poked. Yeah.
And we gently, prodded and poked a bit more, to the point where we got you into a space of saying, what are you known for, Charles? And you have come out with and actually been embracing it through the whole of your business model. Would you share for me, what are you known for, Charles? And how do you leave people feeling around that?
we're known for shifting the future of food and drink by harnessing the power of trends. And what we want to do is to leave people excited, inspired to take action and to champion change and to go and shape a better future for everyone. For us, that's in food and drink, but frankly, anyone in their industry, that's what we want them to go and do.
And so when you came and sat around that kitchen table and we got you into that space, and I think that was that a year ago or more, a year and a half ago?
Yeah, well over a year ago.
Yeah. And since then, could you tell me of the journey that you've been on? Because what I always say to people is there's two ways of building your business around a purpose. One is as a fantastic marketing strapline, and it's not driven into the business and people just have it on their wall and get a marketing agency involved. And the other one is building it through the end to end of the whole of the business model. And I've been watching you blossom with Wayne over the last year and a half. And I'd love it if you would share a bit of your story with us.
Yeah, sure. I mean, we've been notoriously bad at articulating what we do and why. I mean, Wayne and I were very clear about it at the beginning, which was the bizarre thing. We spent 12 months building a business plan, sitting around a table on somebody else's time in Smithfield in London. And we were very, very clear about it at the time. But then somehow that became internalized for 15 years, and I remember that some of the key sessions that we had. But I was waiting for Wayne. Wayne and I were meeting. He was a bit delayed on the tube, and I remember this moment where shifting the future of food and drink came to me. I was sitting in the library at the Soho Hotel, which is where we were meeting, and I was literally brimming with excitement to share this and go, what do you think about this? And we both just got so excited about it. And I think the thing for us is that it's so much more than a marketing strapline. It's given us permission to talk from the heart about why we do what we do. And it's so much more than a vision or a purpose. It's an embodiment of why we do what we do as people and as a team as well. And I think that's the great thing about shifting to a purpose-driven business. It's not just about the message, but it gives you a framework for business, for personal and team development. There's the whole structure that goes around it, which is the thing that has been so powerful for us. And over the last few weeks, we've made some structural changes and regrouped our team around the purpose and our values and the brand ladder and so on, and just to see how energized they are, how many ideas, how kind of with us they are on this journey. It's just such a powerful thing. And when you get it, I said to Wayne the other day, you start to not worry so much about the fundamentals of running a business, which we all do around the sales and the bottom line, because you just develop a belief system that goes around your purpose, that that you've got a formula, and you can see how that will unravel and what that could do. So yeah, hugely powerful.
So I'm passing you the Unite on Purpose bag. I'm passing it to you, Charles. There you go.
Yeah, I got it.
Got it. Good. Right. You've got the bag. That's like having the keys to Boris for the day, and you can do what you want with the country for the day with your purpose. What are you going to do? What would you do?
What as the food people? What are we going to do?
Food people, you've now got Boris's job for the day. I've given you it. You're going to unite on purpose, all around your purpose of shifting the industry of food.
Well, I mean, our focus areas would be distribution of food and health to the right people, and make sure that was distributed equally from both a health and a nutrition perspective as well. I think We would want to make sure we've got an equal share and spread of trade between, the big corporations, but also the smaller businesses as well, and create space for change makers. I mean, we're actually starting an initiative called In Conversation With, much like this actually, where we're going to be talking about other champions of change. Yeah, exactly. Where we're going to be talking about talking to other champions of change, other people that are shifting the future of food and drink. And we've got 3 or 4 of those lined up, and just the diversity of people, the ideas that are out there, it's just an exciting place to be. I'd create an environment where all of those businesses will flourish. And it's a great question, because it's taken us on to think about how we support new audiences, how we support the future generations of food and drink as startups and entrepreneurs, but also in the education space as well, secondary, further and higher education. We're thinking really seriously about how do we use our content to engage young people within the food and drink industry as well. So yeah, we're properly fired up.
And if you're now in the future and it's 3 years from now and you're looking back on what you've achieved, do you think that there's that next generation there that's going to look back up at you and go, okay, you were the ones that were the catalyst of pioneering this and moving that forward? Could you see that happening?
Yeah, I can absolutely see that happening. And through things like new audiences program, thinking about things like bursaries and foundation, that's exactly where we want to be. And again, I could cite notes in my Evernote that I took right at the beginning of lockdown, when Wayne and I sat down and said, okay, how are we going to turn this devastating situation into an opportunity? And I remember having a conversation that said, yeah, we want to be inspiring that next generation, so that somebody said, I saw that really inspirational piece of content or a video or something from the Food People that made them go, right, I'm going to commit to this industry. I'm going to do something different. I'm going to be a change maker. So yeah, I do.
And I remember we put on, I said this to Andrew, we put on the webinar series like 3 days after lockdown, and we had, I think there was over 200 of our businesses come and join us on the journey over 17 weeks. And yourself and Wayne have been there going through the journey with us. And I have to say, watching your business and the 2 of you and how you've embraced the change, you have exactly done that. You went out with a human response, you connected with the audience, and the collateral and the videos that you've now been creating. I watched one of them. You sent me one the other day. I thought it was hugely inspiring of what you've been able to achieve over the period of time. And it's been really energizing for me to see you at my kitchen table a year and a half ago and what you've achieved over this period of time.
I mean, one of the things that we felt right from the very beginning of this is that industry was in need, because there are businesses that were just closing their doors, whether they be individual independent outlets or national chains that were just having to shut their doors, and the industry, and more importantly the people in it, we felt had a need. So that was the reason actually for starting our 12-week series on food and drink in the COVID era and what that could mean. And we've sort of followed that journey through, and also done things like helped our customers with how they access our content, the tiers, and payment holidays and all sorts of things, not for any other reason than actually we kind of owed it to the industry to do what we could in our own small way to support them. And that wasn't something that was calculated. That was just something that was completely instinctive, because we have such an affinity with the food and drink industry. And now we're starting to see people, come back, and some of the emails and messages that we've had from people have been really, really moving, and have been, quite touching, and make all of those decisions, which were rooted in our purpose, the right thing to do.
Well, That's my half an hour up, Charles, and I have to say it goes so
Has it been
quick.
half an hour? Has it
I
gone?
can't believe it. They just speed by, and I'm so intent on listening to you and all your words of wisdom. Thank you so much for coming on the show. And please, for anybody that wants to see the Food People, you can go onto any of their channels, their social media channels. They are a source of huge information and talent. And I would really suggest that you tune into their, is it In Conversation With?
In Conversation With, yeah. Well, after we launch our purpose with you on the 30th, we'll be starting In Conversation With shortly after that, and that will be available across all of our social channels and on our blog as well.
Thank you, Charles. Thank you very much. And Wayne, it's wonderful to have you and have some of your messages. And yes, we did poke and prod you to get you there, but hey, what, you took that and you ran with it. So thank you very much for coming on the show.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks, Lindsay. Cheers. Bye-bye.
And just remember that we are running the Unite on Purpose campaign. And so this is going to be taking place. Here is the bag, Unite on Purpose. And the reason for that is to create unity, to unite on purpose and also unite on your purpose. And what we're doing is collating all the purposes. On the 30th of July at 9 o'clock in the morning, there will be everybody going live with their purpose. And if you would like to come and join the Quiet Revolution, then join the Quiet Revolution and come and find me on my LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, or any of other social channels. And if you'd like to, you could also come and join me on the BoB Earth platform, bobearth.com, or come and join me on BoB Earth Facebook group. And I'll be whizzing around the earth on a brand new earth, creating a new face of the modern world. I'll see you tomorrow at the same time, 5 o'clock. And I have another fantastic guest in all about how you prosper together. See you then.